but not without recognizing the president himself, who shares same name with my principal, Mr. Rotimi Edo. I acknowledge you, sir. I would also like to acknowledge all the past presidents of this great institution, all the past secretaries, all the past executive council members that have labored so well to have taken this body to where it is today. All the insurance broker fraternity that are here, all the stakeholders, in absentia also the chief host, acknowledge every one of you. If I have not particularly mentioned your category, who is fearfully and wonderfully made. So wherever you are seated, you are fearfully and wonderfully made by God. So you are important. I'm happy to be here, and it gives me great pleasure to stand in for my principal, who has been invited as the chairman of this occasion. We would have loved to be here personally, but for other important state engagements. Like you all know, we are in the season already. Because our local band, I'm sure I have a witness here, the one that bears same name with the man in the local. I'm talking of one Mr. Tunumbu that is here. Our local. So it's our season. So many activities are on, you know, and it's taking a toll on our time and our energy. But we will get it. He would have loved to be here. But he has asked me to stand in for him, so I'm just going to read a short remark from him on this occasion. Fathers of the profession who laid a solid foundation for today's event. I'm talking of all the past presidents, all the past secretaries and other executive council members that have labored so well in the time past and handed over the baton to the present executive, has been led by Mr. Rotimi Edo. My heartfelt congratulations also go to one of the illustrious founding fathers of the council, Olola Olabode Ogunlana, the doyen of insurance in Nigeria. Baba, I greet you. Especially, who also at 90 years of age is not only present here to witness this occasion, he is still very active, much active in the development of the insurance policy industry in Nigeria. Finally, I felicitate the entire insurance broken fraternity, all of you that are here. I congratulate all of you. Indeed, 60 years of only remarkable, but the great faith by your various monumental achievements. No doubt the council has gone through many challenging phases of hurdles and conflicts over the years to attain the success story being celebrated today. The council must have also experienced phases of friendly and unfriendly political, economic, technological, and social environments. One of such political one was shared when we were in that room having tete-a-tete with the commissioner and the president on some of government policies that actually affected the growth of insurance in Nigeria. So, however, as we get back today, there is very reason to rejoice as a formidable organization. An organization which plays a vital role in human life and other assets. As you bask in the euphoria of this diamond anniversary, it is necessary and important to evaluate critically the performances of the Council over the years and project into the future for better attainment. And I'm sure the discussant, they will look at all of these areas when they move into that session. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I wish to state, in spite of the performance of the Council over the years, the insurance penetration in Nigeria is not only very low, but the industry contribution to the gross domestic product, GDP, is yet less than being satisfactory. The President talked about it in his speech that is less than 1%. It has been noted that it contributed only 0.88% to the nation's GDP in 2021. I don't know what the percentage will be in 2022. We will know at the end of the year. As brokers, being the ones closer to the insuring public, the Council needs to take steps to address these twin problems, which are: one, there is need to embrace more technology and innovations to enable the Council to deliver its services speedily and more efficiently to guarantee life and property of the insuring public. And secondly, to improve revenue generation to the national coffers. The insurance industry needs to constantly and regularly rebrand its operations. The people's perception and understanding of the benefit of insurance is somewhat still poor. So more awareness has to be created for the public to actually know the value of insurance. Claims not only need to be quickly paid, but ensure wide publicity when they are paid by respective brokers. You need to tell somebody what you are doing. If you don't tell your story, if you allow some other people to tell your story for you, they will say what you are not. They will tell the people what you are not. So tell your story. Let the public know what you are doing, especially in the areas of paying claims. The time has come for the insurance industry to take its pride of place in the Nigeria economic sector. There are many yet untapped benefits in this sector. We want to assure you, for us in Ondo State, we want to assure you of the willingness of Ondo State government to collaborate with the Council, if you call upon us, with a view to contributing to the development of the industry in the Sunshine State, which is Ondo State. We also discussed this in the room. If you knock on our door is wide open, our arms are wide open to embrace you so that we can collaborate and discuss on how best to improve your operations in Ondo State. For me, insurance is one of the very few businesses that exist to sustain other businesses. It is a tool to protect nations' wealth and economic development. Consequently, I enjoin members to uphold the goals and vision of the Council for the good of the Nigerian society. Once more, I wish you all a happy Diamond Anniversary. Thank you for listening.
So you pardon me. And I'll quickly go to the father of the day, my father, the doyen of insurance, the one who is concerned about an industry, a noble industry, our own Baba Olola Olabode Ogunlana. We want to thank you, sir. The keynote speaker, the chairman here is holding, a friend, an investor in our industry. I was made to understand that he's on his way. Past presidents and council members of the NCRIB, the president of the Chartered Insurance Institute of Nigeria, the only one who can seize my license, representative of trade associations, its leadership, chief executives of insurance, broking, loss adjusting firms, here present, speakers and discussants at this 60th anniversary colloquium. Our friends, the press. My assignment here this morning is not to issue guidelines. Neither am I here to make policy pronouncements. But I'm only here to felicitate with an arm of the insurance sector, a very important sector in the value chain, the broking fraternity. 60 years of existence in our economy cannot be taken for granted. It has impacted on business sustainability. It has impacted on homes restoration. It has impacted on our service delivery. On behalf of the chairman, the governing board, management and staff of the National Insurance Commission, we want to congratulate the president and chairman council and members of the broking fraternity on this auspicious occasion. I have not come with any written speech, but just to speak from the heart. The representative of the chairman of the occasion said in his speech that insurance is one sector that exists for other sectors to thrive. Of course, that's a fundamental truth. However, we say, so much has been achieved, but much more can be achieved. Until insurance becomes the oxygen that homes breathe, the industry breathes, and a subject that is known to each and every one, we have not arrived. The crusade has started. On our side, as the regulatory arm of the industry, we have been visiting and touching states, and Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor, at least if the Governor will reject it, I'm sure the Deputy will receive this. Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor, Ondo State will be the next port of call. The message of insurance must permeate every state of the Federation. Let it not be said that we were not told. That is our mission. My responsibility here is just to give a goodwill message. My elders in the industry, the president and chairman of council of the NCRIB, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for cooperating with the industry, with the regulator in the affairs of our industry. Some could be painful, some could scratch us a bit, but we still find you there cooperating and aligning with some of the policies that have been issued. We need to do a lot more than we are doing, no doubt about it. We need to get involved, and above all, we need to cooperate with one another. One thing that is lacking in this sector is collaboration. During the, like call it coffee time, breakout time, we were discussing, and I said one of the things that we lack in this sector is the needed cooperation. There's so little that you can do as individual company. There's so much we can do as an industry. So when policies are formulated that will affect the entire industry, don't put your company alone in that policy. Look at the bigger picture. That is going to be quite helpful to all. And on this note, ladies and gentlemen, I want to congratulate the broking fraternity. 60 years has gone. So much has been achieved. More years ahead, and so much to be achieved. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, please, for those that registered when you're coming into this hall, there's a text message, that a link that has been sent to your phone. Please, I know that we are all very careful when it comes to what we click on, but there's a link that, having said that, thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you, Commissioner for Insurance. Thank you, the Deputy Governor of Ondo State. While we're waiting for our keynote speaker, I would like to take a goodwill message from the President and Chairman in Council of the Chartered Insurance Institute of Nigeria in the person of Mr. Igbiti. Let's put our hands together for him as it comes. Edwin Igbiti. Thank you.
Why my brother, Barrister Rotimi Edu, can stand on it, and therefore sustainability is the key word. Going forward, as the Commissioner has rightly pointed out, we need to collaborate the more. SRIB, we appreciate you for your support towards CRN, but we can do better. This sector needs to take its rightful place. And taking its rightful place, as the Commissioner has rightly pointed out, we are the catalyst. The economy can only grow if insurance grows. And therefore, we need to occupy this space in our going forward. I indeed appreciate the topic for this colloquium, and also appreciate the fact that we need to look and think ahead. And thinking ahead belongs to all of us. Most especially, I really thank our father, Olola, who has spent over 70 years in this industry. You can do better than that, because which means it's coming to this industry is older than NCRIB himself. And therefore, that really gives us a command that we have a future, we have a hope. I sincerely believe that all of us, when we leave this place today, we will see an industry that will take its rightful place. One more time, I facilitate with all of us in the broker fraternity, which is the arm of this industry, that we will take it there. Thank you very much for coming, and we know we will meet very soon.
He also chairs Nigeria's largest hotel operator, Trust, whose subsidiaries include Transcorp Power, one of the leading producers of electricity in Nigeria, and Transcorp Hotels PLC, Nigeria's foremost hospitality brand. He is the founder and chairman of Here's Oil and Gas, an upstream oil and gas company, whose assets include Nigeria Oil Block OML-17, with a current production capacity of 50,000 barrels of oil equivalent per day and 2 billion reserves of 1.2 billion barrels of oil equivalent, with an additional 1 billion barrels of oil equivalent resources of further exploration potential. Here's Oil and Gas is committed to creating resource-based added value on the African continent. Tony is the most prominent champion of entrepreneurship in Africa. In 2010, he created the Tony Eludelu Foundation TEF, leading philanthropy, empowering a new generation of African entrepreneurs, catalyzing economic growth, driving poverty eradication, and driving job creation across all 15 African countries. Since inception, the Foundation's flagship program has identified and catalyzed nearly 16,000 entrepreneurs and created a digital ecosystem of over 1 million Africans as part of a 10-year, $100 million commitment to fund, mentor, and train young Africans. The Foundation is increasingly sharing its unique ability to identify and access young entrepreneurs across Africa with institutions such as the European Commission, United Nations Development Programme, the International Committee of the Red Cross, and other global development agencies implementing thematic programs that are focused on women and fragile regions. Tony's businesses and foundation are inspired by its economic philosophy of Afro-capitalism, which positions the private sector and most importantly entrepreneurs as the catalyst for the socio-economic development of the African continent. Tony sits on a number of public and social sector boards, including the World Economic Forum Community of Chairmen and the Global Leadership Council of UNICEF Generation Unlimited. In 2020, the recognition of his business leadership and economic empowerment of young African entrepreneurs, he was named in the Time 100 Most Influential People in the World and recognized with Belgium's oldest and highest royal honor. In 2022, Time again recognized Tony with its inaugural Time 100 Impact List, honoring him alongside 6 global leaders who have gone over and beyond to move their industries and the world forward. Tony has delivered papers at several international fora cutting across all the continents of the world. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is a thing of honor that Mr. Tony Elumelu, CON, will be making his imprint in the history of the Nigerian Council of Registered Insurance Brokers as he delivers the 60th anniversary colloquium of the Council, theme 60 years of insurance broking, redefining the practice and the practitioners.
Wonderful event to mark the important milestone, and also for choosing a topic I consider very, very important. People in history who take time to reflect on the past and try to visualize the future often go far. And so I like to hear, redefining, assessing and redefining the future. What have we done right? What can we do better? How do we shape and make that future that we're aspiring here for come true? So I think it takes boldness in the leadership of the council to choose a topic like this. We're here to celebrate what the insurance sector in Nigeria can do, what the insurance sector in Nigeria should do, and what the insurance sector in Nigeria must do. We are here to celebrate the past, but also to look forward. So we'll try to be candid. There's so much to be done in our industry. I'm proud to be part of this industry now, so I'll speak as an industry. There's so much to be done in our industry if it is to truly realize this potential and serve our common good. I know the good that can come from a deep and well-regulated financial services sector. As the chairman of Heirs Holdings, our investment company will change lives in Africa and are transforming our continent. Financial services are a pillar of what we do at Heirs Holdings Group. That is why we launched Heirs Insurance and Heirs Life, and thank to Mr. Thomas, the Commissioner, for making this possible. Thank you, sir. That is further why at United Bank for Africa, a group that I'm opportune to chair, we transformed access to banking. We made banking available to people in Nigeria, but also across Africa. That is why UBA is present both on our continent, 20 countries in fact, and also in France, USA, the United Kingdom, and most recently, the UAE in Dubai, precisely. And further, in trying to transform lives, at the Tony Elumelu Foundation, we are empowering young Africans across the 54 African countries. So far, over 15,000 young African entrepreneurs have benefited directly from our foundation. We know at the foundation and from our experience that access to capital is scarce and support networks are also poor. So we try to fill this gap. We democratize law just as we democratize banking, and are working with all of you and others who are not here to democratize the insurance sector in Nigeria. Simply put, financial services are not a privilege, but a right. We want to make simple, smart insurance available to all Nigerians. This should be our collective commitment to our people. We all understand the pivotal role insurance plays in any society. Our industry provides the much needed safety and security. We, as insurance sector, allow people to save, to think ahead, and to secure their futures. What we do, indeed, is extremely precious and vital to humanity. And we mobilize funds, and we should be deploying those funds for the broader benefit of all in our economy. Families receive financial security through what we do in the insurance sector. Their assets are protected against hazard, and their businesses continue to run. We give confidence to people to operate and confidence to people to live. An economy is therefore as advanced as its insurance sector. Let us, ladies and gentlemen, ask ourselves as practitioners in the sector and in line with the theme of today's session, are we doing enough? We need to be candid and frank, and that's why I commended the organizers for choosing this topic. Our industry's contribution to national GDP is tiny. Our reputation could be better. Our practices more professional. Our promises to our customers always honored. A deep and well-regulated industry is a benefit for all, not least for the professional broker, the trusted and the necessary confidence of customers. It is a time of great pessimism, especially in our part of the world. But I'm not a pessimist, and all of you, as insurance professionals, I'm sure, are in the same camp as I. I see opportunities. I see our industry's potential. So let us all join hands together for common good by fulfilling the client's expectations of us as insurance professionals. Of governance. Our sector is critical. That is why we are celebrating 6 years of NCRIB. As old as our country that we celebrating 62nd year in a few days' time. Let me celebrate, ladies and gentlemen, your commitment to professionalism, to education, and to our industry. Members of NCRIB have, over the years, facilitated insurance businesses in hundreds of billions of naira, delighted millions of Nigerians with your insurance services and ensured that claims are settled. But we must not be complacent. We must not rest. Because there's still a whole lot of people in our country who do not have access to insurance policy. Let us not shy away from uncomfortable truths. There's always room for improvement, and I believe that is why we chose this thing. We must strive to achieve the highest levels of professionalism and dedication in delivering excellent service to the public, who indeed rely on us to provide them with comfort and assurance and safety and security. I want to highlight key areas where I believe we can do better as a sector. Where we need to do better if Nigeria is to get the insurance industry of our country's desires and one that we all deserve. Let's start. Let's talk about governance and compliance. The elimination of unprofessional practices in our sector. Let's talk about the need for innovation, the power and imperative of technology in the 21st century. Let's talk about how we should promote and raise awareness of insurance in a country of 200 million people, yet penetration poor and as a percentage of GDP, tiny. How do we promote and raise this awareness in our sector and in our country, and how do we pursue objective of creating a far, far deeper, highly capitalized industry that serves the customers and channels long-term investment to our economy to drive and capitalize for that economic activity. We need to enforce strict adherence to corporate governance by all NCRIB members. We should collectively weed out non-registered and non-compliant members. Once we tarnish the image of the broking profession and the industry at large. An insurance broker must be professional at all times. In redefining the practice and practitioners in the insurance broking profession, NCRIB should lead the war against many of the unethical practices that have troubled the industry for years. We know these practices: premium rate cutting, delayed premium remittance, unremitted premiums, overloading of premium, returned premium, fake documents and documentation, fraudulent claims, collusion to defraud, mis-selling, unhealthy competition, misrepresentations, manipulation of policy conditions, self-aggrandizement methods disguised as marketing expenses, and many more. It is a sad litany that stains those who want to do right and affects the ability of the professional ones to grow or team up to expand this market. While NICON, our regulator, continues to play its guiding role as the industry regulator, NCRIB must ensure that appropriate sanctions are imposed on any of its members found using or practicing unethical. Must ensure that appropriate sanctions are imposed on any of its members found using unethical practices. We need to grow our industry. We need to grow our industry for benefit of all. And to do this, there are a few things we must do. First and foremost, superior customer experience. Our customers, our clients, and the insurance public, and even the entire population must believe in insurance sector, must see us for what we are: confident, providers of security and assurance, people who are there to power them to greater economic success, who are there to help secure their future and their children's future. So customer experience is very important. Smart, trusted, reliable, prompt, responsive insurance sector is what will help us deepen the insurance penetration in Nigeria. People by word of mouth should tell their friends. The insurance sector in Nigeria, if anything happens, claim is done within 24 hours or 36 hours or 40. That is what will help us, one of the things that will help us grow the sector. The NCRIB and other insurance bodies should collaborate more to deepen the insurance penetration in Nigeria. We need, and I've seen this happen in other sectors. There was a time in banking sector when we did the Standard Trust Bank UBA merger in 2005. UBA was the first Nigerian bank to pay 1 billion naira in cash through ATM. 1 billion in 1 year through ATMs. 1 billion. UBA had just 16 ATMs. 2005. Today, UBA alone has over 3,000 ATMs. And all through the banking sector, you all know that ATM has changed the sector. This was made possible through collaboration. And we can deepen the insurance sector in Nigeria by collaborating, and a few of the ideas that I want to share here today. And that we must do for our own self-even interest, because the sector.
Thank you for joining us again on the News Hour on Biscon Television. I'm Stella Opara. First, the headlines. On the national scene, NSCDC arrests 22 suspected illegal miners in FCT. Oshibajo, wife, condoles with Akeredolu's family. In business news, 2.2 million barrels per day 2024 growth expectations, key to shaping oil markets, says OPEC. On the foreign scene, Russia reopens embassy in Burkina Faso, closed in 1992. And in the world of sports, Barca move, dream come true, says Amunike. Now the news in full. The Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, Federal Capital Territory Command, has arrested 82 suspected vandals and 22 illegal miners from August till date. The FCT Commandant of the NSCDC, Mr. Olushola Odumoso, gave the figures during an interview with journalists on Thursday in Abuja. Odumoso said about 20 suspects were arrested in connection with manhole cover theft and vandalism of critical national assets and infrastructure. He said 5 suspects were arrested in September for alleged vandalism of electrical cables, 14 for alleged vandalism of other public property, and 2 others for alleged television theft. The commandant said the other suspects include 28 persons nabbed for alleged railway vandalism and destruction of other critical national assets, adding that 11 were apprehended in October for illegal mining. December recorded parade of 11 illegal miners and 2 vandals. Now, former Vice President Yemi Oshibajo and his wife Dolapo on Thursday expressed condolences to the family of the former Ondo State Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, who died on Wednesday. In a post on his X handle, the ex-VP wrote that he has lost a brother and a friend of over 40 years. He prayed that the Almighty God will comfort the family and people of Ondo State on this great loss. Newsmen reported that Akeredolu died on Wednesday morning at the age of 67 while undergoing treatment for prostate cancer in a German hospital. Now, a chieftain of the ruling All Progressives Congress and former presidential candidate Mr. Gbenga Olawepo Hashim has described the death of former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gali Naaba, and Governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu SAN, as a huge loss to Nigeria's politics and democracy. In a statement, he said Naaba was a patriot, selfless politician, and true Democrat who sacrificed his ambition by repelling dictatorship and instituting the independence of the legislature. On Akeredolu, he said the late governor of Ondo State contributed immensely in the struggle to uphold the rule of law in Nigeria through his legal practice and as president of the NBA before venturing into partisan politics. Alawekpo Hashim noted that Akeredolu was a believer in the principles of true federalism, and his death would remain as a great loss to the nation. The frontline politician prayed that God would grant the families and the loved ones of these two great Nigerians the fortitude to bear the irreparable losses. In another development, President Bola Tinubu has once again reiterated that reforms embarked upon by his administration since assuming office in May would yield positive outcomes. Tinubu, who made the promise during a town hall meeting with traditional rulers, chairpersons of local governments and local council development areas, and other political office holders at the State House in Marina, Lagos on Wednesday, insisted that the financial re-engineering spearheaded by his administration was the only way that would take Nigeria on the path of prosperity. The president also declared that his administration would not stop working on revamping Nigeria's economy and creating viable opportunities for the youth to meaningfully participate in an inclusive, labor-intensive economy where businesses can thrive. He, however, appealed to citizens to be patient and support the ongoing reforms bound to improve the economy and steer the country towards hope, stability, and economic prosperity. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll bring you business news. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Biscon Television News. Now to business news. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries said its 2.2 million barrels per day expectations for economic growth in 2024 is expected to play a defining role in shaping global demand and supply in the oil markets. OPEC stated this in its monthly report for December, a copy of which was obtained by Newsman on Thursday. The latest report noted that looking ahead to 2024, global oil demand is forecast to rise by a healthy 2.2 million barrels per day year-on-year. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, oil demand is expected to increase by 0.3 million barrels per day, predominantly in OECD Americas, with other regions also showing some growth. In the non-OECD, a 2.0 million barrels per day year-on-year increase is projected, with China and the Middle East leading the way, supported by Asia and India. This forecast centers on sustained economic and petrochemical activity across major consumer nations, which fosters demand for transportation fuels and distillates in 2024. Up next is foreign news. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the News Hour on Biscon Television. Now to foreign news. Russia on Thursday reopened its embassy in Burkina Faso after a gap of nearly 32 years, the West African nation's government and a Russian diplomat said. The mission was closed in 1992. The Russian ambassador to Ivory Coast, Alexei Saltykov, said Russian President Vladimir Putin would name the new envoy. The Burkinabe Foreign Ministry confirmed in a statement that Russia formally reopened its embassy this Thursday in Ouagadougou. Saltykov said he would head the mission in Burkina Faso until the new ambassador is named, and he described Burkina Faso as an old partner with whom Russia has solid and friendly ties. You're still watching Biscon TV News. Coming up next is Sport News. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now to the world of sport. Former Super Eagles forward Emmanuel Amunike has described his move from Sporting CP to Barcelona as a dream come true, Newsman reports. Amunike joined the Catalans in 1996 to become the first Nigerian to don the Blaugrana jersey. Success as a young player with Egyptian giants Zamalek brought the forwards to the attention of Sporting CP in Portugal, and it was during his time in the Iberian Peninsula that he played arguably his best football. After 2 years in Lisbon, that dream call from Barcelona arrived. Meanwhile, the Atlanta 96 gold medalist saw his time at Nou Camp marred by a series of injuries and could only manage to make 26 appearances in 4 years, scoring a goal. Despite his lack of game time, Amunike said joining Barcelona was the highlight of his career. We'll take another short break. When we return, we'll bring you entertainment news. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Biscon TV News. Now to entertainment news. Famous Nigerian rapper Eriga has criticized his father for assuming he deserves a part in his wealth, even though he had little involvement in his upbringing. Eriga said this in the first episode of Fina's podcast, Spill with Fina. The rap star disclosed that his father abandoned him when he was 8 years old and that he had to raise himself, only for the man to now chastise the musician for not providing for him. Eriga stated that his father, since he's becoming a star, has been reaching out to him, trying to get one thing or another from him. And that's it for now on the News Hour on Biscon Television. Compiled and produced by BC Elegunde. I'm Stella Opara. Thank you for watching.
Hello and welcome to Newspaper Review on Biscon Television. I am Cynthia Ibukwe and with me here is
Adebisi Legunde.
We're bringing you major headlines from some of the newspaper, and with me here I have the Guardian newspaper. Today, December 28, 2023, the first headline says, End of an era, sunset for Akeredolu, new dawn for Lucky Ayedatiwa. We can't find more stories on that on page 6 of the newspaper. Civil society groups, lawyers mourn Akeredolu, Naaba. You can find more stories on that on page 4 of the newspaper. Rivers elders write Tinubu, Fubara on illegality of peace pact. You can find more stories on that on page 7 of the newspaper. Federal government assures justice for victims of plateau attacks. Okay, is immediate soccer. You can find more stories on that on page 3 of the newspaper. Zenith named best bank for digital solutions. You can find more stories on that on page 15 of the newspaper. FCCPC slams $110 million fine on bats for violation. You can find more stories on that on page 14 of the newspaper. Tinubu 6 councils, monarchs support for development. We can find more stories on that on page 5 of the newspaper. Plateau killings, Sultan charges government on proactive intelligence gathering. We can find more stories on that on page 4 of the newspaper. How Naira redesign, fuel subsidy removal, others affected poultry business in Southeast in 2023. You can find more stories on that on page 7 of the newspaper. And that's the headline for the Guardian newspaper.
And on the Nation's newspaper today, December 28, 2023, I'll begin with the first headline. Above the masthead here, we have Shetima, Shekarau, Kwankwaso, others bid na Aba farewell. The writer says, ex-House of Reps Speaker buried in Kano. The story you'll find on page 19 of the Nation's newspaper. No plan to take over banks, says CBN on page 7. Zenith Bank is Nigeria's best in digital solutions on page 7 as well. Plateau mayhem. Debt tolls rises as Vice President condoles with communities on page 25. 4 INEC directors on retirement leave. We have that on page 25 of the Nation's newspaper. Navy decorates 29 rare admirers on page 25 of the Nation's newspaper. And boldly written here says, Ayedatiwa steps in after Akeredolu bowed to cancer. The governor died in his sleep in German hospital. He was fearless, says Tinubu in tribute. Governors, Buhari, senators, APC leaders, Jimoh Ibrahim, NBA, others mourn. CBN investigator rejects Lemo, others request. The writer says bank owners must honor invitation today so as not to obstruct probe. The story you find on page 5 of the Nation's newspaper. And lastly, we have pipeline vandals responsible for explosion in rivers, says NSCDC. You can find the story on page 27 of the Nation's newspaper.
With me here I have the Punch newspaper. Today, December 28, 2023, above the masthead, Plateau massacre. Federal government vows justice. IG sends squad after killers, say Shetima. We can find more stories on that on page 14 of the newspaper. Federal government fines British American Tobacco $110 million, drops criminal charges. You can find more stories on that on page 7 of the newspaper. Railway debts servicing exceeds revenue by 1,200%, says report. You can find more stories on that on page 21 of the newspaper. Ayedatiwa takes over Tinubu. Government says Akeredolu's debt, big loss. You can find more stories on that on page 2. And the writer says, Ayedatiwa lists Akeredolu's achievements. Deceased government aides resign. Workers mourn. Another writer says, Akeredolu, a great fighter, say Tinubu. Governors, others, Ondo declares 3-day mourning. Insecurity, economic hardship to worsen in 6 states. You can find that on page 21 of the newspaper. Mob kills 2 over alleged murder in Ogun. You can find more stories on that on page 4 and 5 of the newspaper. And the last headline says, ex-speaker Naaba buried in Kano. President others mourn. You can find more stories on that on page 14 of the newspaper.
And on the Guardian newspaper today, December 28, 2023, I'll begin with the first headline. Hope rises for federal government's 27.5 trillion naira budget as oil price leaps to $81.11 on page 15 of the Vanguard newspaper. Zenith Bank wins Best Bank for Digital Solution Awards on page 8 of the newspaper. Tinubu to local governments. Monarchs. Let's unite for national development. You can find the story on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. Tears as former speaker Naaba, 65, dies, buried in Kano. On page 7 of the newspaper. Sad day in Ondo. How Akeredolu died at 67. Ayedatiwa sworn in as governor, vows to sustain Aketi's legacies. Declares 3 days of mourning. He died of prostate cancer in Germany, says Ondo government. Says we've lost an extraordinary leader. Details of funeral to be announced later. Tinubu, Atiku, Akpabio, governors, Akpata, PDP, Bayo Ojo, AGF, others mourn. And the last writer says how Akeredolu became fourth Nigerian governor to die in office. Now to Plateau State. Death tolls hit 195, 100 of houses razed. The story you'll find on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. Governor Ayedatiwa makes new appointments on page 8 of the newspaper. Now Olufaso has something to say on page 16 of the newspaper. Sadly, here in Nigeria, the judiciary has done nothing to safeguard and strengthen democracy. Rather, there is a strong perception that, especially on politically sensitive matters, the judiciary is in the pocket of the incumbent government and ruling party. You find that on page 16 of the newspaper by Olufason. Now to the world of sport. AFCON 2023. Pesero scored ready, says Babayaro. Accuses NFF of indifference over face of home-based players on page 29 of the newspaper. Now we have the columnist Amechi on page 17, Law on page 2, Learning on page 14, and Labor on page 26. We're going on a short break now to come back with the rest of the newspaper. Stay with us. Welcome back to Newspaper Review on Biscon Television. With me here I have the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Today, 28th December 2023, above the masthead, Gani Naba dead, buried. You can find more stories on that on page 3 of the newspaper. Shetima in Plateau says government determined to dispense justice. The writer says it is time to take decisive stand against murderers, says the Northern Khan. Another writer says, declare state of emergency on security, ACF tells government. And the last writer says, US calls for prosecution of perpetrators. You can find more stories on that on page 11 of the newspaper. Boldly written here, Rotimi Akeredolu. And the writer says, how he died in Germany of prostate cancer. Another writer says, he will be missed for his courageous standpoint on issues of structure of Nigeria, says Afeni Ferry. And the last writer says, Tinubu, Buhari, governors, Atiku, traditional rulers, Jimo Ibrahim, Ganduje, others pay tribute. You can find more stories on that on page 2 of the newspaper. A speech made by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu which says, here I am with the difficult job of singing a dirge for Oluwarotimi Odunayo Akeredolu, my beloved brother, confidant, political soulmate and governor of Ondo State, in a challenging moment of our statehood, when Mahoudin agents of darkness spread their tentacles across our country. Rotimi was a strong voice in wilderness, calling us to rethink our security architecture. So we can have a more secure nation. His unrelenting advocacy led to the birth of the local police in the southwest, says the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I hear that he was sworn in as Ondo governor. You can find more stories on that on page 2 of the newspaper. And the writer says, Akeredolu stood for truth to his own detriment. Another writer says, promises to give priority to people's welfare. And the last writer says, makes 5 appointments. The more stories on that on page 2 of the newspaper. Zenith Bank wins Best Bank for Digital Solution in Nigeria. You can find more stories on that on page 6 of the newspaper. INEC retires 4 directors. You can read more of that on page 4
of the newspaper. Vote buying allegation. Adebutu reports at Egu Police Headquarters. You can read more of that on page 16 of the newspaper. FCCPC fines tobacco companies $110 million. You can read more of that on page 7 of the newspaper.
I'd like to continue with the Daily Sun newspaper today, December 28, 2023. And on the Daily Sun newspaper, the first headline says, 2 high-profile deaths, new governor in one day. The writer says, Na Abba, ex-House of Reps Speaker, dies at 65. Ailing Ondo Governor Akeredolu, 67, succumbs to prostate cancer. Tinubu, Buhari, Jonathan, governors, Kalu, PDP, CAN, NBA, Sans mourn, pay tribute to departed. Aiyedatiwa was sworn in as new Ondo Chief Executive, declares 3-day mourning on page 26 and 27 of the Daily Sun newspaper. Moving away from that, we have Nigeria challenged but in good hands, says the president, on page 28 of the newspaper. Now to Enugu State. Mba signs in 521.5 billion naira Enugu 2024 budget into law. List expected gains. The writer says charge state exco on revenue mobilization service delivery on page 2 of the Daily Sun newspaper. Tinubu, Akpabio, Abbas, Gbajabiamila, governors, Oni of Ife, others to attend reception for Reps Duty Speaker in Bende. On page 28. Rivers elders, Fubara disagree on peace agreement on page 28 as well. Zenith Bank named best bank for digital solutions in Nigeria by Euro Money. You can find the story on page 2 of the Daily Sun newspaper. Anger. Pains continue as Plateau massacre victims narrate ordeal. The writer says, attackers preventing us from collecting our belongings. Boko's residents. Killings add to sad memories of Tudubiri bombing, says ACF. Victims will get justice, assures federal government, on pages 5 and 28 of the newspaper. And lastly, on the Daily Sun newspaper today, December 28, 2023, the headline says, Igwe Orizo III Day of All Eyes on Nnewi as monarch celebrates 98th birthday, 60th year on throne, on page 13 of the newspaper.
With me here I have the New Telegraph newspaper. Today, 28th December 2023, above the masthead, PMS 192 billion naira worth of products arrives for year-end festivities. You can find more stories on that on page 3 of the newspaper. Less naira volatility predicted for 2024. You can read more on that on page 25 of the newspaper. Federal government fines BAT 91.8 billion naira for violating anti-competition laws. You can read more on that. Federal government fines BAT 7.8 billion naira for violating anti-competition laws, says Irukera. You can read more on that on page 30 of the newspaper. Governor Mba signs 521.5 billion naira Enugu 2024 budget into law, says Mba. You can read more on that on page 24 of the newspaper. INEC retires 4 directors over federal government tenure policy, says Yakubu. You can read more on that on page 7 of the newspaper. Rising school fees plan to cripple our members, Muslim students laments, says Maman. You can read more on that on page 26 of the newspaper. Black Wednesday. Akeredolu dies of prostate cancer at 67. Ex-speaker Galina Abba dies, buried in Kano. And the writer says, Ondo governors, death blow to APC. Progressive family says Tinubu mourns Naaba. Jonathan Atiku, no take two. And the writer says, Ondo governors, death.
Ondo governors, death.
Take two. Ondo governors, death blow to APC. Progressive family says Tinubu mourns Naaba, Jonathan Atiku, Kalu. Governors, others recall their valuable contributions to national building. Can read more on that on page 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 26, 28 and 29 of the newspaper. A picture here showing Ondo Chief Judge swears in Ayeda Tiwa as governor. Can read more on that on page 3 of the newspaper. How Aketi's death alters calculation ahead of 2024 Guba poll. Can read more of that on page 3 of the newspaper. Oil price falls as investors watch Red Sea developments. Can read more of that on page 8 of the newspaper. Adebutu visit Ogun police, dismisses vote buying, money laundering allegations. Can read more of that on page 30 of the newspaper. Away from that, Plateau killings. Bandits steps ahead of government, says Sultan. And the writer says, it's reminder of state of insecurity in North Nigeria, ACF. And the writer says, we can't make progress in this situation, says Norton Khan. Another writer says, federal government won't rest until victims get justice, says Shetima. Can read more of that on page 4, 7 and 30 of the newspaper. Prostate cancer. Why black men are at greater risk. Can read more on this on page 4. I think it's health related, so if you want to have more idea, you can read more on that on page 4 of the newspaper. The last headline says, higher waist circumference tied to female infertility, says study. Can read more on that on page 7 of the New Telegraph newspaper.
And the last newspaper for today's newspaper review today, December 28, 2023, is the Daily Trust newspaper. And I begin with the first headline. Mishandling of CBN investigation report can create distrust, panic, says experts. Apex Bank assures depositors safety of funds. The story is on page 23 of the newspaper. Now to Edo State, Edo 2024. Obaseki slashes Shaibu's budget. Deputy Governor insists on competency. On page 13. How cyber attacks expose Nigeria's IT security vulnerability in 2023. Now we have a picture here showing Akeredolu and Gali Naaba's picture saying as Akeredolu dies at 67. Aiyedatiwa was sworn in as Ondo governor on page 4. Now the writer says, announces appointment, late governor's aide resigns. Tinubu, Buhari, Atiku, governors, others mourn. Tributes as ex-speaker Galina Abba buried in Kanu on page 3 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Now the last headline for today on Daily Trust newspaper says, bandits always a step ahead of government, says Sultan. The writer says, embrace peace, stop killings, Shetima tells Plateau people. ACF calls for state of emergency in banditry-prone communities. Northern Rep seeks support for victims. You find the story on page 6 of the newspaper. And so we have come to the end of newspaper review today on Biscon Television. Thank you for staying with us. I am Adebisi Elegunde.
And I'm Cynthia Ibukwe.
Here. I believe that all of us should commit to doing so under the leadership of our Commissioner of Insurance. Mr. Capitalism. This is our economic philosophy that advocates for the private and public sectors to collaborate to achieve unified goal of alleviating poverty and facilitating shared prosperity and including our neglected, especially our women folk. Ladies and gentlemen, we can go on pontificating, philosophizing, but as I often say to people, the window we have to make a change and transformation in society is fast dwindling every day. And time to act is now. And it is incumbent on all of us as practitioners in this sector and friends of the sector, and in fact the entire society, to work together to bring this change about now. Let me conclude, therefore, by thanking the organizers of the event for inviting me to share my thoughts. I've always been passionate about the insurance sector, and that is why it took us over 8 years to get licensed. And again, this man here, Mr. Thomas, made it possible. As I said earlier, not a pessimist, and I know you all are. I know times are tough, but we can transform our industry, create value, personal and for our community. Let us do this together, conscious of the improvements we can all make and the destiny we can all achieve. I know that together we can and will deepen the insurance sector in Nigeria and provide innovative solutions and products that demonstrate the value of insurance to our people. Thank you very much.
I would like to also mention an announcement I did earlier, and that is the fact to kick off by sharing his thoughts based on that paper presented. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Shola Tinubu. Thank you.
Skip Nigeria Co. Limited, Olola Olabode Ugulano, our Commissioner for Insurance, Mr. Sunday Thomas, all my professional colleagues here present. I'm glad to be able to add a few thoughts because the paper that Tony Eluelu. I would have liked Tony to have been in the room because I wanted to show some special gratitude to him for always being in support of the NCRIB and our industry in general. This is not the first time that he has led a paper in front of us. He had us the last time he sat with us. He may not have created, but he has made something we have embraced in insurance. And that was the term that he used, saying that capital flees to where it is welcome. I hope we all could read his statement. And this was obviously in the context of a discussion regarding capital. But it's a wider statement because essentially what it's saying is that people will commit resources and see benefit. That's really it. So if you create where employees would like to come to, they would come. And if you create, an environment where people want to run away from, guess what will happen? They will run away from that environment. Now, in his paper today, he spoke about things, and I think we've set the tone quite clearly in terms of what insurance stands for, and people have defined it slightly differently. But one of the things he said today is that it actually enables others to think ahead to secure their future. However good today is, and however bad yesterday was, today has come and it has gone. The next is what's going to happen tomorrow, and that's where insurance comes in. what can you do today to help your tomorrow and secure your future? It is about working today with that kind of confidence about the future, and insurance is key to that. And key to insurance is about delivery and distribution. And delivery and distribution is where the brokers come in. And brokers have been doing this, as we now learned in Nigeria, for the past 60 years under the NCRIB. And I think this is commendable. He did not say everything was all positive. He tried to look at certain things regarding where we are, where we want to be, and what are the things that may be holding us back. He did talk about the need for technology. The technology is here today in so many facets of our lives, and we need to incorporate it in broking as well, so as to deliver that secure future which he referenced. He talked about other things on the issue of governance, on the issue of ethics. He did mention things like premium rate cutting, late or non-remittance of premium, fraudulent claims, misrepresentation of facts, and the like. And although, I think that some of these lists, if you look at them carefully, you think that many of them were of the past. If you take one, for example, the issue of late or non-remittance of premiums, I think this is something coming from, the past. This industry has overcome it since, properly anchors to drive no premium, no cover. And I said the anchors because no premium, no cover was in existence for decades before. But when they introduced anchors to support it, no premium, no cover, we found that went away. But I must tell everybody here today, all looking for now is growth. And what people do not realize a lot is that why does anybody, any businessman, introduce credit into his system? The only one reason why anybody sells on credit is to achieve growth, is to achieve a turnover, is to achieve a sale to somebody who doesn't have immediate cash. Immediately you make your business a cash and carry business. Immediately you have segregated the market. I will only sell to those who have cash immediately, and those who may be able tomorrow to pay you tomorrow, I will not sell to them. And if we want to go towards growing our industry, we need to begin to look at how we can safely introduce that back into the system. Especially if we now want to deepen insurance and we want to move to a level of retail. Because in the retail space, now you want to talk about people who are not as well, endowed in terms of their cash, in terms of money, ready to buy insurance. We need to be able to look in those areas now, how we can do it. He has said, obviously, that we need to look at retail. That's where we need to go. If we look at the explosion of telecoms in the country, it was significantly when they made it retail that it exploded. The telecoms came, and when they started, remember how expensive the phones were. Remember how expensive just to get a line was. And then if you want to have a recharge card, I think the smallest was 5,000 naira. Right now, and it was all security with all sorts of things on it, ensuring that nobody can know. You have to scratch the card and all of that. Now they brought it to retail. On little pieces of papers, you can get maybe 100 naira credit. You get your line even free of charge. Sometimes we credit on it. This was addressed. It was only when they opened up to retail that even the telecoms, as big and as huge as they are, that was when they exploded in the market. So we need to talk about retail and all the things that are holding us back. And I think Tony has also mentioned that. So he said the NCRB has a huge role to play in the issue of awareness, because that's very critical. I'm going to start talking about that more often now and trying to sell to those we have not caught in our grasp. He talked about catching them young, cradle to grave, he said, and which means that we're talking about going to schools to go and ensure they understand insurance and are ready to be, participants in our industry, both on the resource side in terms of human resource, but and also on the buying side, being customers. And these are things that we need to, be part of. And I know that NCIB is taking huge steps in that regard in encouraging schools to take this up. On the KYC, he did say something that we've been trying to talk about for a while, but coming from him, I think he's made it he's put his a lot of his brand behind that as well. Is the issue of the KYC. KYC right now is a major issue for all of us. It has to be done. It's important it's done. It's to secure our industry and to secure even the customers themselves. But the way it's not done is that it's now being done at so many stages. It's so many at the broker stage, at the insurance stage, at the adjuster stage, at every stage, it's expected to be done. Now, the issue of our collaboration, he said if we're working together, we'll get further. And one of the kind of critical things that we could do is in this area of KYC. If a bank has done KYC and has done it to all the extent, in fact, if you see some KYC of some banks, they ask you for an arm and leg, who your grandmother was, everything, all loaded into that. It has done all of that, and that has satisfied. Why can't we all just, line up behind it? It's not only when we are making speeches that we should stand on existing protocols. We can't stand on the protocols that have also been done by another reputable organization. So I think we should really embrace this possibility. And he then, mentioned something now that's very critical. He said, we can say all these things and look at the future. But if the future itself will come and become the past, if we do not act now, it will just look like our past. So to avoid our future looking like our past, he says the time to act is now. Thank you.
This lovely sector of the insurance industry to be what it is today. Distinguished paper discussants, ladies and gentlemen and members of the press, thank you for this opportunity. But I must say, I wish Tony were here. I must say that on behalf of the discussants, we've been asking for Tony's paper for some time so that we can ably discuss his paper. Unfortunately, it wasn't made available, so we had only hear what he has for us. And so, I had to make my own notes yesterday because I can't come to you empty-handed. If you like what I'm going to tell you, it's time for me. I didn't have the paper beforehand. To many of us, COVID-19 was a major negative, and I must commiserate with all of you that lost loved ones during that pandemic. But to some of us, it was a blessing in disguise because it taught us new ways of doing old things. We sat at home for weeks, for months, and at the beginning we were happy, especially those that don't pay salaries. Those that receive salaries were happy staying at home. After 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months, everybody started itching to go back to work. So the few companies that have learned the art of working virtually, they were smiling to the bank. The few of us that could only do our email anywhere we were on our phone tablets and computer. We managed a bit. Some people fell by the wayside. And of course, COVID-19 became a blessing to the economy of the world. It taught us how to do the same thing in new ways, and this is what we should be looking at for the future. My second point is going to be on the Japa syndrome. All our youngsters traveling abroad, looking and seeking the golden fleece. As small as we are in Biscon Tv, we've lost 3 members of staff to the UK this year alone. A friend of mine, a legal firm, employed 33 new lawyers in January. Today, there are only 2 of the 33 left. 31 of them have jackpot. To me, it's a blessing in disguise. It would give the opportunity for young ones to seek to gain employment. I appeal to those that have jackpot to represent us well, but to remember where they are from and ensure that they keep in touch with home. Look at what is happening in the health sector today. All those doctors that Andrewed after we finished university, remember the Andrew syndrome? Many of them are back in Nigeria, setting up outstanding hospitals with state-of-the-art equipment. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The Andrews of yesteryears have brought back good things for their country. So those that want to japa, in the future, Nigeria will be better for it. But guess what? Like I said, opportunities for those new ones coming on, all of us must invest humongously on staff training and retraining. Because one of those that left from Biscon Tv had worked for us for 18 years. You can imagine the quality of training that she must have gone through locally, nationally, internationally. She was one of our best staff. So, what should we do? All the young ones we've employed, we are taking them through rigorous training because it's difficult to find experienced hands anymore. I'm going to appeal to all of you, if you want to stay relevant in the future, for the next 60 years of insurance broking, you must set up a training model for your new intakes, and the training must be continuous. We must learn to turn challenges to opportunities. We have to improve our IT system, and please be active. Social media is not for everyone. It is for everybody. I've had applications to our company on social media. We have had bids being sought for on social media. I have not read a newspaper in the last 2 years. Everything I want is please turn challenges to opportunities. Big is better, which will drive you towards too big to fail. I am not saying if you are too big, you can fail. No. I'm encouraging you to merge, acquire, and grow bigger. The size is important, And like I've always said, anybody who keeps listening to me, you've got to grow. If you are stagnant, you will eventually die. You must grow your companies on an annual basis.
Thank you so much, sir.
Many of us, please, we're giving 10 minutes. Please, I beg you. Please. Work, let me share more. Please. Thank you. Many of us that are involved in international business, those that we meet with abroad, they are all specialized. A person who's been in aviation all his life for 20, 30 years becomes an outstanding professional. All of us in Nigeria, we are a jack of all trades. We do everything, including me. We do everything. Now is the time for us to specialize. And guess what? You meet an aviation broker and you want to discuss insurance of war. Hold on, let me call my colleague. I came from Nigeria. Everything is in my head. How come you can't discuss ordinary war? Somebody else is a specialist in war. The same with marine. You find some people doing hull, you find some people doing P&I, and you find some people doing war. That's all they do, and they master it. What I'm looking at is the next 60 years of insurance broking in Nigeria. That's where I'm giving all this advice. Development of new products. We must develop products that are relevant to the client's lives and operations. How do we make insurance available to every Nigerian? That is the question for this room. Can you imagine the premium income from that? Can you imagine the possible brokerage income? We must work hand in hand with NICOM to not only deepen insurance penetration, but also to make it available to all. Is our industry trusted by the public? We must meet our commitments in a timeous manner so that the trust is established, we are taken seriously and believed because of our integrity, professionalism, and transparency. We must take insurance education to many more schools, colleges, and universities to interest the youth in our industry. Arts, compulsory in all secondary schools. Why can't insurance be added? Because of its importance to the sustainability of any economy. I know we're working strongly on this, and our commissioner is here, CIN president is here. Let's put hands together to put insurance in all classrooms. You all remember the Nokia story. A big company producing mobile phones. At the height of their failure and the valedictory speech of the CEO, his last statement was, I quote, "We didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we failed." My colleagues, you must do many things right so you don't fail. Your team must be constantly challenging themselves on changes happening around you, how to adapt your current processes. Failure must not be ours, I decree. But remember, heaven helps those who help themselves. I thank you for this opportunity to once again to our insurance industry.
For me, my friend was given 10 minutes, I have 5 minutes, and that's fantastic. Now, the first thing I want to bring to our attention, I think Tony mentioned that in his presentation, and that is bringing side by side banking and insurance.
Now, if you look at macroeconomic data, usually they are put together as one single sector, banking and insurance. Latest data for this year, the second quarter of this year, put it at 4.25% as contribution to GDP. But when you pair that data and now say what portion of the contribution do we attribute to banking and what portion to insurance, it becomes very clear that yes, they are a twin, but one is a poor cousin of the other. So the question now is, why is it so? A lot of the issues we've already talked about, but in my own opinion, and this again was referred to by the president in his opening remark, the welcome remark he made earlier, and that is the fact that all over the world, usually what we observe is that banking is a weaker cousin of insurance. But the reverse is there. And the question is, how do we reverse that? How do we reverse that? And of course, like the president mentioned us, reminding us about three fundamentals. It's not me. It's the microphone. All right. Now, if we remind ourselves about the fundamental role of insurance in growing the economy and also achieving the major expectations we have for the society to develop, then we see clearly there that insurance deepening, and this is my own opinion, that brokers have two major roles to play in that process. Number one is to recognize that brokers are market makers. And when you make markets, it means the two sides to a relationship in that market, you interface with them. And that means for the underwriters, you provide value that they can practically put their fingers on. And so they therefore want to do more business with you. On the other hand, the insured as well need information and we need to deliver value to them. So constantly, we keep in mind that fundamental role of market making. Now, secondly, I want to also draw our attention to the fact that the insurance industry is deepening, and all the expectations we have, the major metrics for measuring that sector, will never improve until brokers as major players in that sector excite the market. That means the excitement for the market will come from you. Not necessarily from the underwriters or from the regulators. But as market makers, the real powering of the economy will come from you. And I say that from my experience in banking. You know, my career was in banking before I now came into business consulting generally. So when we talk about market making in banking, that means you now, putting you in context as a broker, you won't sit back at existing clients and existing portfolio. You actually go out and research prospective companies, individuals, maybe you want to call them high net worth, governments, and I'm happy about what the Commissioner for Insurance is doing currently, to see the need for insurance, and then in the process establish why they can get value and how they will get it from insurance. This we used to do a lot in banking. For example, I sit in my office and get to financials. I dimension of financials and I see opportunities for you on an advice I can give to you as an investment banker. So when I come to you and bring in a solution to a problem you probably even don't think you have. So in that process, you get to see the problem to start with, and then you see the solution I'm offering you, and then we begin to converse on how that solution can be delivered to you. So I create a market in the process. But the market I create also enhances the investment banking market. So now, let me conclude this way, and I'm happy that my very good friend, Jide made reference to that. Anytime I see a celebration of an anniversary, 60 years, it tells me two things. There is the past, 60 years, we are celebrating achievements. Then we should also begin to think about 60 years' time. So what do we want to see change in the sector, in the industry? Very well defined and separated by the insurance in our informal conversation before this event started. So what do we see happening to this sector in the next 60 years? Of course, I mean, I don't imagine, if I don't pray for it, that I'll be alive in 60 years' time, given my age today. All right? Which means if we are looking at what needs to change in the sector and in the industry to make it better and bigger, we will not necessarily be the ones in particular as individuals that will be in it. But we are laying the framework and all the hard work that needs to be done to build a better future for insurance in Nigeria. And that is the note on which I want to conclude my intervention. Because of our time, again, and not to repeat what others have said, I want to say a very big thank you to the President and the Council for having me be a part of this. Thank you so very much.
Amen. Thank you. I will my appearance together for the representative of the Executive Governor of Lagos of
arrangement and rearrangement. Events have overtaken that. So I will just chip in my thought, and then, because I have another meeting for 1:30, take my leave. I'm a professional from another industry, in the finance industry also, but not insurance. So when I was redeployed to Ministry of Finance, and the insurance department is the core department. That was how I got to know Barrister Rotimi Edu, wonderful gentleman. And so I became a friend of insurance, because I learned some things. A lot of it usually come on my table for approval or for further recommendation to the Honorable Commissioner for Finance. And from the people I was listening, and it has been exhaustively discussed, but I will only talk about which was not emphasized, which is the awareness and sensitization. A lot of Nigerians are unaware of the benefit of insurance. I wasn't too until I resumed in Ministry of Finance, and I met the like of Oluwole and Akitunde, and I begin to appreciate. And I have a lot of insurance policies now. Within 6-7 months I've been there. So you need to create awareness about the importance of insurance to the people. 60 years ago, when the level of education was low, we may say, well, just few people get to go to school. But now we have a lot of graduates out there. So a lot of investment should be made in the area of sensitization and awareness about the importance of insurance. For example, the NSAS. It was not foreseen. It happened suddenly. And the thank the insurance industry, you know, they bailed the state government out. Because we receive a huge compensation from our underwriters, and kudos to our who made it possible. That's Barrister the super lead. You know, I got to know about all this super lead, the lead, you know, I've not heard of. And then technology. Technology should be deployed. And like the COVID, I didn't hear about Zoom, and And there are others now. There are many now, but the first one we heard about was Zoom. And then it was then I knew that we can meet without actually being physically present. I didn't know about it before. That's the power of technology. Technology too should be deployed. And you know, an average Nigerian on a lighter mood, may not easily part with his or her money, and then you are now asking him or her to come and assure or himself or his wife or insure his property, and they say it can't happen, but unfortunately it's happening, especially nowadays. So you need to create awareness and sensitize people about insurance. And our discusser, Mr. Agbadi, it's all every one of us, the young and the old, is for everybody. So that only that you have to do some screening and you have to do some screening and shifting, you know, because social media is destructive too on the other side of it. But you can, when you shift and you screen, you will have good information. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. I will have loved to stay till the end because Barrister Rotimi Edu is my big brother and a very good friend. And but when duty calls, and I want to thank you, and I say God bless you.
Thanks together. Man, thank you so very much, Biscon. Thank you. Excellent. We're going straight away into the second segment of this event, and I would like us to please for about what is about to come. Let's all be prepared for what is about to come. Permit me to recognize.
Connecting the past to the present, redefining the future. This is beautiful. 60 solid years. 60. Wonderful. I will say here. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Hands together even as it comes. SAN, please put your hands together for him.
And everything was already set and ready. I don't want to compare it with my own profession, where we had disgracefully had to scramble for bags. But this is testimony. The little things are the things that make for excellence, but they're often not seen, and that's why I wanted to start with it. Before I proceed, I should pay tribute to all the past presidents of this council and the doyen, Baba, who has come here. All of these things depict the importance of what you're doing today, and I'm privileged to be a part of it. I will go straight to the task of reviewing the book, Connecting the Past to the Present, Redefining the Future. And it's your 60th anniversary book, a compendium of sorts of registered insurance brokers. Many would say, what is in a name? There are so many things in a name. You are the Nigerian Council of Registered Insurance Brokers. If I were to take an argument, it would suggest that there are unregistered insurance brokers. And that is a challenge and task for the regulator to deal with. I have had the benefit of breakfast with your former president, Prince Feyi Shoyewo, and it was a morning well invested. This book has a foreword written by the Commissioner for Insurance, the CEO of the National Insurance Commission, Mr. O.S. Thomas. I will start off by agreeing with him in the statement he made, where he said, and I quote, "Giving the title of the book, NCIRB at 60, Connecting the Past to Present, Redefining the Future," that this book could not have come out at a timelier moment, as this era marks a major turning point for Nigeria and the Nigerian Council of Registered Insurance Brokers, the Council. It is without doubt an attempt to define and create a formidable future, and this hinges on understanding the past challenges you've had and the lessons that they portend. The book is broken into 12 chapters and has a compendium of members of the Council. I must of necessity state that the President and Chairman, who is my learned friend and proudly so, Mr. Edu, wrote a chapter in the book, and I found it very interesting. When I get there, I will share some of the highlights. The first chapter, which is the flagship, talks about connecting the past to the present, and it was written by Dr. Abraham Aderemi Alo, FCIB, and it focuses on the history of the Council. It is important to document your history, else it will be told differently. And that is the value of this book. It's a wealth of history. It draws from the legacies and the wealth of experience of 6 doyens in their respective professions. Mr. Talabi Braithwaite, Mr. John Akin George, Mr. Femi Johnson, Mr. Akintola Williams, Mr. Labode Ogulana, Mr. Adeyemi Lawson, and others. It looked at the formative years, the challenges faced by the Council, and the resilience of your founding fathers, despite the political unrest during the Civil War. The writer details the events that led to the creation of functional chapters of the Council and a succession structure, which is guaranteed the sustainability of the Council. Without governance and structure, you do not ensure sustainability. And it's no doubt that you have a very well-governed and very well-run Council that you should be proud of. Dr. Alo concluded that chapter by stressing the continued relevance of the Council in assured through its imperishable assets, which are the legacies of the Founding Fathers, the vast list of committed leaders of the Council, and the accumulated wealth of experience regularly available within the Nigerian insurance broking industry. Chapter 2 talks about scaling the legal odds, and written by Feisha Shoyewo, MFR, it did examine, and critically so, the development of the legal machineries for insurance broking in Nigeria and the empowerment of the Council. Why is this chapter very important? Most professions run on codes of behavior. Without a code of behavior built upon competence, you would really not have a profession. But they then suffer something called the tragedy of commons, meaning if one person misbehaves, people tend to ascribe it to the rest, unless and until that body isolates the errant member and visit sanction on the member, and that tells the public that you must continue to keep the confidence in us. So much of this is picked up from the second chapter, where the writer also looked at the subsequent laws and challenges associated with Insurance Decree 1997 and Insurance Act 2003, particularly the obliteration of the recognition given to insurance trade bodies under the earlier decree and the consequential sweeping away of the recognition enjoyed by the Council on Insurance Broken. This chapter formed unknowingly the subject of my breakfast chat. I got better insights into the challenges that you face, which can and must be overcome, given that the commissioner was here and you couldn't have a better audience than you've had this morning. Chapter 3 looks at the insurance industry challenges for today and albatross for the future. I try to understand what Egbeyemi was talking about in that chapter. What I could pick up is that he did evaluate the stakeholders in the Nigerian industry, insurance industry, and their functions, and the attempts made by these stakeholders to reduce the challenges. He did talk about the COVID-19 outbreak, the resultant effect of NSAS protests, the general apathy by the people represented in the 1% insurance penetration rate, which I thought was very low, and the industry challenges as a major one plaguing the insurance industry in Nigeria and Africa. He did profess solutions, which I invite you to find out in the book. The ideal broker was the subject of Rotimi Edu's chapter 4, where Rotimi Edu analyzed the concept of the insurance broker, the dynamics of the insurance industry, and the impact of the insurance broker in the Nigerian insurance industry. He took a crucial look at section 36 that defines a broker. And it says that it is not aligned with insurers, but rather serves as an intermediary between underwriters and policyholders in the sale of insurance products. It is my personal, maybe minority, perhaps majority view that the general public need to understand the true nature of brokerage, so that they do not think that it's an added cost to their cost of insurance, but actually does reduce it, as I saw neatly put in your program. Much of this discussion talked about what plagued insurance intermediaries, and they highlighted illiteracy, delay or non-remittance of premium on value that an insurance broker contributes to the industry. And I think nothing sells you more than Rotimi Edu's chapter. And that's why I said you would see that his chapter was focused on selling the insurance broker and making the general public understand what they really do. And I'd like to invite, at the end of the day, a commendation for that chapter. It's brilliantly written. Chapter 5 touched on insurance broker and the changing business environment, the dynamic environment, credited to Mr. Shola Tinubu, and taking cue from the research of the Chartered Insurance Institute in 2018 on the emerging reality of insurance brokers by the year 2028, visionary. It discussed the need for insurance brokers to evolve in order to maintain relevance in the ever-changing business environment. In that chapter, he mentioned the influence of COVID-19, the positive influence of COVID-19, and talked about the demand for a transition of their role as insurance brokers from just pure middlemen to function as pure professionals required to provide expert advice on possible risks and insurance policies best suited for the well-informed, tech-savvy young population. That is the biggest call. When this book talks about the future, this chapter is an invitation to perhaps unlearn all that you have learned and evolve for the future. Chapter 6 took a sectional bias. Sashino Elusakin looked at oil, solving issues and gas, and he gave a brief overview of oil and gas industry in Nigeria and the role of oil and gas insurance in fostering economic development. What I found interesting was his advocacy for more and more insurance to be done locally, because much of the premiums were going elsewhere. He posited that rather than the approach taken by NICOM to implement a general solvency or capital requirement for all insurance agencies, that the approach was to implement risk-based supervision, where NICOM will assess the risk exposure of each individual insurance company and develop the capital requirement for that company specifically. I don't know how he's going to achieve that, but these are the thoughts that he's penned down in that chapter. Malamo Sunday Luole in chapter 7 talked about risk management as panacea for economic challenges. He looked at proactive and systemic management to alleviate poverty and develop the economy by foreseeing possible risks and planning accordingly for them. In this, the writer of the chapter takes the view that we should have a forward-looking approach to risk management and advice in that regard, rather than take a reactive approach to it. He presented the steps that the board of directors could implement to manage crisis situations, and of course, in so doing, generate insurable risks that need to be covered. What I take from it is that the insurance broker of tomorrow would be risk managers, anticipating risk and looking at the best solutions for dealing with them, rather than working just with a table of risks that must be complied with. Thoughts on aviation insurance showed, and this gave me a challenge to understanding how to pronounce names from other parts of the country. Mr. Okwia Oba Amadim Erha Egianrua gave a very succinct overview of the aviation industry. It's a sectorial, brilliantly analyzed piece. And he talked about the expansion to read Femi Ojomu's chapter 9, which emphasized the need for corporate organizations to look at governance and sustainability, as the keynote speaker did highlight. And he invited a discussion into the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2020. I was privileged to have been a member of the committee that wrote that code, and he did justice to the code in a very practical manner. Reflections on COVID-19, the economy and insurance was Ekoma Ezibe's piece in chapter 10. It did analyze the attendant effect of COVID-19 on the economy, and he also talked about how the business of insurance was affected and the opportunities have now been created from business interruption, insurance cover. So you insure business interruption at times like that. She advised that insurance covers are properly to new products that can accommodate some of the risks suffered by businesses during the pandemic. That chapter was to take out new business opportunities that came from the pandemic, as we all were privileged to witness and survive it. Chapter 11 is Rethinking Annuity Business in Nigeria. Mazi Chijo Kenwafo discussed the historical background of annuities. And it talks about the types of annuities, emergence of annuities, and the challenges that they face. He also discussed the scheme and its cover to $463 billion in 2020. Industry. And that is possibly 70% of recurring expenditure. So there's a lot to look at in terms of risk from what is going on in the pension scheme. And that is what Mazinwafo invites the reader to look at in chapter 11. Chapter 12, which is the last chapter, just so you know that I won't be here much longer, it looked at the women breaking the ice ceiling. Laide Osijo did wonderful job in the role of women and the community, but also talk about the deaf and leadership positions, and examine issues such as gender bias and a discussion on discrimination that are somewhat hindered the career progression for women. It's a point to reflect on. Though the writer noted the progress made in breaking the ice ceiling in the insurance industry since the first woman, Mrs. Caroline Okpaise, was admitted to the profession only in 1960, she emphasized the need for more representation in the sector and leadership positions in the council. I can tell you that Osito was carefully scripting to the regulator to perhaps toe the line that the central bank has in trying to see more women in leadership role in the insurance industry. I think you should give her a round of applause. Now, I will pause here and throw you a quiz. And that quiz is, what is the difference between a professor and a somnilinoquist? A somnilinoquist is one who talks in his sleep, and a professor is one who talks you to sleep. So I will not talk you to sleep. I will pause here and say this is a well-written book. I do recommend it as an academic myself for the good reading of insurance professionals, researchers, and avid readers. It captures the history of this great council, the development of the insurance industry, and the future that you should anticipate. It is also very innovative and contains key recommendations both for the practitioners, the professionals, and the regulator, and for some of us who are just beneficiaries of a growing industry. I thank you very much for listening. That is your book.
We congratulate you. But when an institution with its complexity attains 60, it's not only just congratulating, but commending. Thank you. I have listened very carefully to all the things that have been going on around me today. Despite the fact that I haven't been to bed, because I'm writing a paper which will be delivered in a month's time, but the professors would like to read it 2 weeks before. So I haven't been to bed, and I'm eager to get back to bed. It's a shame that Mr. Elumelu has gone. He made a very interesting point. In fact, too, he said insurance must be divided from cradle to grave. He said that I've spent a few years in the insurance industry. I have discovered that it starts not from the cradle, it's from conception. I know what I'm talking about. When next we have the opportunity to get together, I will explain all about it. We must be very innovative in the way we present insurance, particularly now. Another point made today is that we must have vision, announced a long time ago that there can be no today if there was not a past. And you cannot have tomorrow without today. So I'm really happy that this book here is connecting the past to the present, redefining the future. I want you to go back into the past a bit. Before then, you have been happy on the fact that the penetration of the insurance industry into the GDP is about 1%. Honestly, it cannot be other than that. Because there have been some inhibiting factors which this nation has refused to remove over the years. The last time the Nigerian financial system was reviewed was in 1976, the famous Okigbo Commission. My humble self was a member of that commission. If many of the things we said in that report had been put into effect, not only insurance, but Nigeria will be way ahead of where we are today. So I must say it out loud and clear that the time has come for the Nigerian financial system to be reviewed. It must be done tomorrow, if not today. Unless and until it has been done, you will not achieve more than 1% penetration. Another thing that has given me concern in recent times is that as an industry, we are not pulling together. We are not pulling together. When Nigeria attained independence in 1960, one of the best presents given to this country was by the government of the United States of America through the medium of the Ford Foundation. In a heartening letter sent to Zana Buka Dipcharima, who was the Minister of Commerce at that time, they offered to send 3 professors and that the Minister of Commerce was to select 24 young people, high flyers, from government and the private sector who will be able to make an impact on the nation in the years to come. And Zana Buka Dipcharima entrusted the selection to the SO Adebo Committee. And later, Aduke Alakiza, then Secretary of the Chamber of Commerce, was the Secretary of the Selection Committee. I happen to be one of the people chosen to represent the insurance industry. I was the youngest in the class, and the late Mr. McEwen, the first managing director of Nigerian Post Authority, was the eldest in the group. And of course we had the late Obogine. He was then known as Prince Solomon Akenwa, Deputy Prime Secretary of the Ministry of Health. And we had the big giants like Dr. Omola Rele, who later became the chairman of Liver, now called Liver Brothers. Everybody in that group rose to a very, very high position in this country. To mention a few, Governor Tatari Ali, Mamandaku became Minister of Agriculture, and late Apan, who was head of Biafra, the head of the movement, Adu Olaku, who was head of ESO, Ofrum, who was the boss, personal director of the Shell. He created the famous Umukurusi in Port Harcourt. We must draw from the past to prepare for the future. Finally, I want to mention something that has made me very sad. That within our own industry, there are some advocating that we should do away with brokers, that it was an unnecessary appendage. It's a mistake. In one of my books, I've explained why no part of the body can exist without the other. If the body was mainly eye and only the eye, you can imagine what would happen. Or the eye, or the air, or the mouth. No. United you stand, divided you fall. Every sector of this industry must recognize that supporting the other sector and every other sector is the only way for survival.
Nigerian Council of Registered Insurance Brokers, Barrister Rotimi MNI, FCIA, and on behalf of the Events Organizing Committee of our great council, I'd like to thank all of us for finding time out of our busy schedule to be with us today for this big bang event of our 60th anniversary. We hope all of you and even more will be with us. The day we'll put on our dancing shoes to have our grand ball for the 60th anniversary. From the keynote speaker, Mr. Tony Edemeyo, to the chairman, His Excellency Araku Rotimi Akeredolu, the executive governor of Ondo State, to the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, His Excellency. Then right through to the book reviewer, Professor Delia Bajabu, and right through to our dear Commissioner for Insurance, who has dependently been with us throughout our 60th anniversary celebrations, all our programs, in fact. We thank him so much. And then from him,
Thank you very much. Thank you. Because you know what I'm doing? I'm taking our parents back in time already. And the time is where now. That's, I'm sure our mothers and fathers will understand all of this too. Back then. And I'm sure you that's when you were young. I didn't lose like someone that has a lot of success. Yeah. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. It's because God has been so good and so kind and so merciful to the celebrant, such that He has blessed her with 60 years. We're talking about 6 decades on planet Earth. And we are here to return all the glory to God over the life of this beautiful woman, this beautiful grandmother today. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, as is custom at events of this nature, the gentlemen will be required to take off their caps. And of course, everybody will be on their feet in honor of God, in honor of the Most High, the Creator of the creation. As I bring to the microphone for the opening prayer, Pastor Sune Adebayo. Please a round of applause for Pastor.
The pocket in Jesus' name. And to one that I fondly call Elijah, congratulations. We are celebrating, we celebrate Jesus in her. Lord, you have brought us this far. And Lord, we know the future is so much brighter. Lord God Almighty, it's you alone we give all of the glory to. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We thank you because she's in good health. We thank you because her mind is sound. We thank you that she's surrounded by not just family but friends also. It is well with her. It will continue to be well with her. And for all of us that are rejoicing with her, the sound of laughter, joy, and rejoicing will not cease in our homes. And as we approach the end of the year will end well for all of us. Next year will bring greater things for us. Thank you for looking after us well. One more time, we commit your daughter into your hands. Father, thank you for providing for her. Thank you for protecting her. Thank you for being there for her. Thank you for healing her heart. Concerning whatever she may have gone through in 60 years, and she had the grandson. Glory be to you also there. And all that we will eat and drink, Lord, we know you have blessed already. We'll have a wonderful time in your presence here, O Lord. Daddy, thank you. In Jesus' we have prayed. Amen. God bless us all in Jesus' name.
Paparazzi, as much as possible. We understand that you're doing your father with the occasion. But just before we do that, Mommy, while you were in the changing room, celebrant, sorry, I had to get your attention by calling you. While you were in the changing room, I said a prayer. I said, by the grace of God, now that you celebrated 60, you're going to celebrate 70, 100. By the grace of God, your strength will not diminish. You will look as beautiful as ever. And I also said that everyone here would be here to celebrate your 100th. Amen. So Mommy, I said the amen to it. So because some of your girls didn't say amen when I said we'll be here for, so Mommy, I said amen on your behalf. Our 100th year birthday, everybody here will be around by the grace of God. Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, real quick, we are going to have an opening remark. Alright, and to do us the honor of opening this occasion, formally or officially, I'd like to bring to the microphone a gentleman that you all know as Sahito. Can we please put our hands together for Sahito for the opening remark? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a beautiful woman, a gorgeous woman. I want us as much as possible, if you were to describe the celebrants in just one word to describe the celebrant. Owolabi Taiwo on the microphone. Please a round of applause for Chief Owolabi Taiwo, the celebrant's brother.
Great diamond anniversary. I congratulate you and I pray that the Almighty God that has seen you to this level will see you climb the 7th floor, the 8th floor, the 9th floor, the 10th floor. After 10th floor, then you can negotiate whatever you want with the Almighty God. and I am assuring you God will grant it. Abiola, I will not say Abiola R. Taiwo. I will not tell the crowd here the full meaning of the R. However, I will call her my very, very small baby girl. I remembered just like yesterday when I just got back from France. And of course I had a job then with Nigeria Customs, but I decided to go and teach. So she was supposed to enter into Form 1. And as a risk taker, I said, come along with me. Let's go to Port Harcourt. Not just Port Harcourt, Abua. Not just Abua, Ekolo. That's where I was posted for my youth service, and that's where she started at secondary school from 1. I mean, it takes a lot of courage for her to be able to be daringly able to, at her age, even my own age also, somebody that is just coming back from, as a young man, just BS, coming to Nigeria, going for youth service, and taking along, there are about 3 of you. I took 3 of them. Then we went to Port Harcourt. From Port Harcourt, we traveled to Abua. When we got to Abua, we now headed to Ebo. That is the secondary school I was posted to go and teach. But thank God, she has proved not only to be daring, but to be worthy of whatever she has become today. Because coming this far is a very, very tortuous journey. Coming this far is no joke for anybody. So I congratulate you. I pray that the Almighty God that has seen you to this level will not limit or stop. You will see your grandchildren and you will see your great-grandchildren, because it's not too much. By the time you are 80, 90, you are seeing your great-grandchildren. Surprisingly, I wish you the best of luck. Today is your day. Enjoy yourself. Thank you.
God will bring to pass. Because we are seeing some come to pass. And I know we will see many more come to pass. And all that has said about you is true. God bless you mightily. We thank God for your life. We love you and we appreciate you greatly. It is well with them. Jesus' name. And one more time to the special prayer of life. God bless you.
She's a very organized lady. When you give any projects to facilitate, celebrate with her. And I wish her so many, many, many more years on earth. In Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. This is the most beautiful place. You're very dear to us. Such a privilege to be able to celebrate this wonderful occasion. You're such a committed woman. You're a lady who makes things happen. You're a lady who gives and keeps giving. You're selfless. You're just so beautiful. We appreciate you in every part of your family as long as we can't thank you for your journey along the line. Have a lovely time today, friends, and we wish you all the best to come. Answers to all your prayers, the life of God. 60. Thank you for coming here. We welcome you. God bless you. I just want to say a few words about my mum. Where do we start? Aramis. As she's fondly known, Aramis. My mum, she is such a selfless person. The word I used earlier was welcoming, because one thing about my mum is that she just loves to have people around. She loves to love on people and just give all she can to people. She doesn't do it necessarily to receive anything back. She just does it out of the goodness of her heart. So that's just one of the amazing qualities about my mum. Another thing I can say is my mum is full of life. So if you've met her and you know her, you know that she loves life. She loves enjoyment. She loves to just have a good time